Say her name.
Breonna Taylor.
A Black woman.
Daughter.
Sister.
Beloved. 26-year-old Breonna Taylor was awakened when the Louisville Metro Police entered her home
with a no-knock warrant.
In search of drugs they never found.
Trafficked by someone who the department already had in custody.
Officers fired more than 20 bullets.
Breonna Taylor was murdered in her bed.
Say her name.
The officers are free men. No charges.
No arrests.
No convictions.
Say her name.
Breonna Taylor.
Healthcare hero, bravely fought on the front lines of COVID-19 in defense of lives. Say it loud.
Now it's our turn to fight for justice in defense of Breonna Taylor's life.
I play for Breonna Taylor.
I play for Breonna Taylor.
And the New York Liberty demand justice for Breonna Taylor. Join us and take action.
Black women are the leaders of this movement.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Jeremiah Hernandez, and I'm honored and privileged to say that I'll be your MC during our time together this afternoon. A brief background on myself. I was born and raised here in Santa Maria. I've lived in different parts of the Central Coast, spent time in Lompoc, Guadalupe, Orchid. Spent a lot of time in San Luis Obispo when I was a student at Cal Poly, but Santa Maria has always been home. And again, I'm very honored and very privileged to be here hosting today. Thank you to Corazon del Pueblo, Cultural and Creative Arts Center of the Santa Maria Valley for asking me to host the event today and for putting on this event. Especially in this time, in the era of COVID. It has been a struggle for myself, and I'm sure that most of you watching and most folks around the world can agree that it has been very difficult times that we're living in, and not just because of COVID, but because of many, many of the other issues that we have not only in our society, but around the world. One of those being police violence. And we won't get into necessarily details or politics. Well, we may very well later on, but as of right now, we'll just simply say her name, Breonna Taylor. So as you might have seen a moment ago, there was a dedication for Breonna Taylor. And with the recent indictment, or is that the right word, but what's going on in Louisville right now with the single officer that has been brought up on charges. And not for killing Breonna Taylor, not in her death, but for bullets that went elsewhere. Again, it's a very difficult situation. Even myself, I'm hardly at a loss for words, but it's hard to express how I personally feel about the situation. So I feel for everyone out there, again, not only because of COVID or, our individual struggles, but just, collectively as a community, as a people, how we are coping with this, how we are working through these situations. And on that note, to bring a little bit more positivity, I encourage all of you to think about change. And that's what this is. This event is 100,000 Poets for Change. And this event is part of a larger collective that we will be doing, that is going on. But again, I encourage you all to think about change and what change looks like to you, what it means to you, what you hope to have change. As you can see in my background, this is an adaptation of a Banksy piece. And the sign says, "Keep your coins, I want change." And to me, this has always been a very strong statement, because we live in a monetized, money-driven world. And money isn't everything. Again, it makes our world go round, but it's a colonized concept. I'll put it that way. Speaking of colonization, or the thought of decolonization, it is necessary for us to acknowledge the Chumash people as the original, current, and future caretakers of the unceded land of the Santa Maria Valley and the surrounding areas as well. We're grateful to acknowledge, respect, and thank the Chumash people in whose homelands we are all guests. And again, not just in this area, but this entire nation that we call the United States was originally seeded by indigenous peoples, native peoples. So it's important for us to pay those respects and recognize that people were not here 400 years ago. They've been here for millennia, and they will continue to be. A brief overview on Corazon del Pueblo. The Cultural and Creative Arts Center of the Santa Maria Valley is a hub and sanctuary for discovering and experiencing arts and culture. We provide a community space that advances the individual and collective imagination in performing, visual, and literary arts. We foster an understanding of our shared communities by validating their arts, building pride and respect for all who make up the Santa Maria Valley. Corazon del Pueblo envisions a cultural enriching space where diverse identities, heritage, and expressions are affirmed and celebrated throughout the arts. Towards these ends, the Corazon del Pueblo invites community partnership with agencies and organizations such as our civic and educational institutions, nonprofits, and community residences. In Spanish, Corazon del Pueblo es un centro y un santuario para las artes y la cultura. Brindamos un espacio comunitario que promueve la imaginación individual y colectiva en las artes, esencias visuales y literarias. Fomentamos la comprensión de nuestras comunidades compartidas, validando sus artes, generando orgullo y respeto por todos los que componen y Valle de Santa María. Corazón del Pueblo visualiza un espacio culturalmente enriquecedor donde se afirman y celebran diversas identidades, herencias y expresiones a través de las artes. Please excuse my very broken Spanish. And thank you for bearing with me. And that is our overview of the Creative and Cultural Arts Center of Santa Maria Valley, Corazon del Pueblo. And to close out our welcome, a thank you to our supporter, the grant fund from Santa Barbara, whose funding helped to put this event on. If you have not heard about Fund for Santa Barbara, they are an amazing organization that's been helping to support progressive social change in Santa Barbara County for 40 years. They began doing grants in the Santa Maria Valley in 1998 and demonstrated their commitment in 2001 through the first hired staff member dedicated to Northern Santa Barbara County. The Santa Maria office was opened in 2003, and they have been an asset to our community since. Not only do they provide grants for community organizations, but their program, Youth Making Change, is youth-led for youth-led organizations. So they have youth in fund that are making the decisions of where the grant funding goes specifically for youth-led community programs. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And lastly, they provide consulting, support, and resources for community organizations. So with nonprofits, they will help if organizationally, again, with the resources, information, knowing who to contact, how to go about certain processes. So they are very, very much a community-based and community-engaged organization. So thank you, Fund for Santa Barbara, for, again, helping us to put on this event. Now, we're going to get into our proceedings. First up, our featured poet is Jaime Cuello. Jaime, just a teacher, Cuello. Born and raised in Santa Maria, the son of Victoria and Augustine Cuello. Jaime attended local elementary and junior high schools, attended Santa Maria High and then Allen Hancock College, where he was later named one of the top 75 alumni. Quite an achievement. He later graduated from Cal Poly SLO, where he was also named an Alumni of the Year, was an Alumni Org board member, and he was a keynote speaker at a commencement ceremony, Cal Poly commencement ceremony in 2015. He's been a teacher in Guadalupe for 27 years. In 1997, he was awarded a Teacher of the Year in the Guadalupe Union School District. He is a published author and essayist and a self-proclaimed poetry fanatic, and has just been a lover of poetry since 1987. So please give a very warm welcome to our first poet, Jaime Cuello.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Jeremiah. Gracias por la invitación, Corazón del Pueblo, and ojalá I would do you justice. All right, everybody, I'm going to read I got 2 sets of poetry, about 3 poems in each set. Then I'm going to let Jeremiah ask some questions. So if you all can listen to the poem, reflect on it very quickly, because I'm going to go kind of fast, and pose a question on Facebook or a commentary, and I'm going to hit up Jeremiah, and then we'll discuss 1 or 2 of your questions or comments. And I want to say gracias a todos que están aquí. Gracias a Corazón del Pueblo. I want to thank my mom and dad. I want to thank my wife, Yvonne, my daughter, Kennedy, and my son, Agustin. All right, now I got the logistics out of the way. All right, the first poem I'm going to begin with is called Problems. And I wrote Problems a long time ago. I want to say almost 2 decades ago. So only 20 years now. And the stuff that's going to be mentioned in the poem are still going on today, which is it's a trip to me, because I thought we would have improved a lot, but it seems like we're stagnant and we're still the same. And it's going to be talking about los inmigrantes, our immigrant brothers and sisters, and how we criticize them, we put them down, we discriminate against them. And the tricky part is we're only 1 or 2 generations away from the fields ourselves. And with that being said, I'd like to begin with my poem. It's called Problems. Yeah, ese, there's a problem, a big fat immigrant problem. But the immigrants aren't the problem. We are uneducated and uncivilized. The immigrants are wise, brave, hardworking, and survivors. Human beings that have courageously moved from their homeland to another country and are living, breathing, surviving, and yes, thriving, even against racism, discrimination, politics, government, and hate groups. KKK, neo-Nazi skinheads, and the Republican Party of the good old US of A. California says English is the official language, but Spanish, which has been spoken in the Americas since Columbus's first arrival, is still king. from the tip of South America all the way to New York City. And that's a fact, Jack. La raza is everywhere and in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Our cultura, our idioma will always be here. No one, not you, not him, her, them, or those vatos will ever take away our cultura y idioma, because it's a thing that makes us a little different, a little special, a little unique, respectful, and survivors. Keep your cultura y idioma, or learn and suffer like others have, ese. Remember, you don't know what you really have until it's gone. Well, I got mine, ese. Do you have yours? With that tone of problems, that leads me to start thinking about my skin tone, my color. You see, I'm brown. And with that, I have inherited a lot of good things. However, I've inherited a lot of bad things as well. I have this skin tone that affords me riches at times, yet can hurt me, depending on my location, time, and company. And I just don't mean my friends. You dig what I'm saying when I say the company? My body. My body is of a dark color like that of Mother Earth. That brings me respect, honor, and fear in the barrio. But once outside of my barrio, it's like a magnet, and it attracts prejudice, discrimination, and racism. It's unwanted, it's unwarranted, it's unhealthy, and it's a side effect of my beautiful, gorgeous, sweet brown skin tone. Can you dig it? It's beautiful. No matter what you say, its presence is everlasting. And with me, it will stay. You may snipe, gripe, and stereotype me, but I will still remain forever unchanged. That's right. It's with me forever, baby. I hope as I'm reading, I'm gonna give you some think time, like right now. If you want to post some questions up, some comments on Facebook, let's do that right now. But in the meantime, I want to jump on to my next poem. That's going to lead me, speaking of the problems and my skin tone, that leads me to my favorite poem. It's about a human being who has finally come to terms with who and what they are. Yeah, I'm using that pronoun. You see, I, like many Mexican Americans, was born in the USA and very proud of it. Before anybody gets it twisted, like I said, I'm very proud of it. Red, white, and blue are my colors. However, I discovered at a young age that I was special. I was special because of my parents, Victoria and Agustin Cuello. They came to Santa Maria Califas. Yeah, I said Califas. From Camargo, Tamaulipas, by way of her family in Mission, Texas. What's up, Mission? And while visiting family on both sides of the river, I quickly learned that I wasn't Mexican enough for the Mexicanos. You see, los Mexicanos, to them, when we would visit our familia, Agustina and Victoria's kids, we were the pocho kids. We were the gringo kids. I don't know why gringo. We were the Norte Americano kids. We were the American kids. To them, we were never Mexican. And then here in America, well, I'm a wetback, Mexican, immigrant, beaner, spick. Pretty sad, I know. Nevertheless, since at a young age, I realized that I wasn't going to be Mexican enough for their standards, and I wasn't going to be American enough for their standards either. I adopted a new term to define myself. I selected the word Chicano. Chicano. My decision wasn't as easy as you may think. I literally had to dissect myself under horrendous conditions to be reborn as this new, powerful, strong, resilient entity, which I now claim to be Chicano. This is how I became El Chicano. And the poem is called, you guessed it, El Chicano. Soy de dos países, pero al fin, chale, no soy de ni uno. Sé hablar dos idiomas, pero al fin, no sé ni una. Soy de sangre mexicana y de la tierra americana y mixteada de las dos. Ahora soy sangre chicana. And if you notice, the title of the poem is very masculine. It's called El Chicano. But as I progressed through the verses, I thought to myself, how can I pay tribute to the women in my life? How can I pay a little bit of homage, a little bit of respect to my mama, my wife, my daughter, my siblings, my primas? So I ended it with, ahora soy sangre chicana. And I hope that pays homage and respeto to all the ladies out there, all las mujeres in our lives, because you know we love you women. You know we wouldn't be here without you women. So I want to say a las mujeres, Latinas, Chicanas, Mexicanas, however way you want to define yourself, just women in general, I'm going to say this. Gracias. Gracias por apoyarnos. Gracias for having our back. Gracias for putting up with us. I know my wife Yvonne puts up with me with all my pedos, you know? So thank you. And now, Jeremiah, if there's any questions or comments, my man, then I'd love to hear some. Maybe we can open it up to a little bit of chat. And if there's any comments, or maybe even you have a comment or a question, Jeremiah, you can pose it now. And then we can move on to the second set. So I'm gonna pass it to you, brother.
Jaime, thank you so much. We have a couple comments, and first from Jamie Patton, Jamie over at Cal Poly. He said, Jaime is much more than just a teacher. So we might have to change your name, brother. It's not just a teacher, Cuello, man. Patricia Solario says, preach. So plain and simple, man. Telling it to the people, for the people.
Man, right on.
Elizabeth Cortez asks, what inspired you to write the poems that you're sharing today?
You know, I've always heard this about comedians, that they're very observant. And I thought, you know what? We're writers. We're observant too. And it's basic observations that I've made over the years. And it's just basically putting thoughts to paper. The book that's coming out in October is called Courageous Thinkers. And I think when I started to write, it was just observations, the thinking process of what's going on in the world, and having the courage to jot it down, and especially having the courage to come on today and to share my thoughts with you guys. They're my thoughts, and I hope some of them are universal, because I hope some of them anybody can relate to, or not anybody, but some of us can relate to. So ojalá the universalness comes through. Anything else?
I just want to say real quick, Jaime, I appreciate you. And I wanted to note, man, you know, I really resonated with what you said when I heard Pocho. It hit me. when you're talking about, you know, your title and Chicano, and but then moving into the feminine, right? And representing los mujeres, los canales, right? That and the machismo runs deep, man. The machismo runs deep, and you know, not that masculinity in itself is a bad thing, but when it starts to become toxic, then needless to say, that's exactly what it is. It's toxic, and for you to express that blatantly, I appreciate that, brother, very, very
Right
much.
on. Gracias, brother. Gracias. I'm
Um,
gonna go on.
we
I'm gonna
know.
go on with my next set, and then we'll pause again. All right. So the next poem is called Teacher's Aid, and I observed a lot of Mexicanos coming from Mexico, having degrees and working in the fields. And that always tripped me out because they would tell me, soy ingeniero en Mexico. I heard soy doctor en Mexico, soy maestro. And I was like, wow, and you're working in the fields here in Santa Maria, California, yet you have all these degrees. And it made me think about teachers and teachers' aides and how sometimes we'll look at people of color and not recognize them as teachers. And it happened to me on more than one occasion when I tell them that I work in Guadalupe. People will say, oh, you're a janitor. I'm like, oh, no, I'm the teacher. People would look at me and say, oh, well, how is it mowing the lawns out there in Guadalupe? And I'm like, dude, I don't mow lawns. I'm the teacher. I'm not the teacher's aide. So the title of this next poem is called Teacher's Aid. Why does society curse people with dark brown skin? Have I not two hands like them? Do I not look like them? Then why do they think themselves better than I? The only difference is our color of skin. And if we both went to school together, then why are they the teachers and I only the teacher's aide? Ponder that one for a second, gente. Think about that one for a second. Earlier, I heard Jeremiah talk about money, and I was thinking, wow, homeboy stole my next poem. And this next poem refers to money and the greed that comes with money. And I gotta say this, how much money is enough? How many millions of dollars do some people in America need to make? Why do some people strive to become billionaires? And this paper, you know, it's gonna bring a downfall to our gente, our people. So this next poem makes reference to that, and I hope y'all can see it. It's called Paper. Oftentimes, one is embarrassed of his or her or their race. I can understand this because I too, at times, am embarrassed or even ashamed of my race. What is my race, you ask? I belong to the human race, the race that hurts, kills its own kind, the race that steals, hurts, and kills all for the sake of prejudice and paper. This paper with the pictures of fat, old, bald men, the paper that ruled my world and yours, the same paper that ended our world. Let's think about that out there in Facebook land. Everybody's out for the mighty dollar, as Jeremiah pointed out earlier. And when is enough gonna be enough? When are we gonna stop being prejudiced? Stop discriminating against other people, all for the sake of money, all for the sake of paper. You know, a lot of us out there are happy and really, really glad just to be alive, to have oxygen, to be able to breathe, to be able to move from one location to another, and that's happiness. Do we really need to become billionaires? Is the papel gonna bring you this ultimate happiness? For one, I think not. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not even a thousandaire. But I'm very happy. I'm glad I am who I am. I'm glad and I'm proud to say I'm a child of two immigrants who came here and planted the seed of hope that the next generation was going to be better off than what they were. And we did it, Amana, while we did it. Next poem is called Lonely. And this one, it's a short one, so you really got to pay attention. It's short, quick, and to the point. As I wrote this years ago, I was thinking about people in agriculture. And I was thinking about our gente. I was thinking about not only our gente, anybody who works in the agricultural fields and how they feel when they see darkness in the sky. And then I started to think how beautiful that darkness in the sky is, just the same way how beautiful my brown skin tone is. And I wrote this poem based on a person in agriculture sitting there looking at the sky and him or her, them, being all alone out there, lonely. Lonely, the dark cloudy sky over the desert brings great joy to my dark, lonely eyes. For it tells me that black is beautiful, even across that beachy white colored sky. Ponder that one for a minute, people. Think about some of the words you've heard today. Ponder, think about it, soak it up. And I'd like to give you 30 seconds or so to come up with some questions or comments for Jeremiah to relay. And let's do that, Jeremiah. Let's open it up and hopefully we can get some commentary about something that was described here. And once again, that paper poem reminded me of what you said earlier about money. So take it away, brother.
So we had a question right before you started, and I think you kind of answered it through your work, man. Gabe Nichols asked, have your students influence your writing or how you see poetry?
Man, oh man. My students in Guadalupe Mary Beard Elementary School, they some awesome poets. I've actually on YouTube recited one of my students' poems. It was about her cultura and the Mexicas, who are the Aztecs, but our term is Mexica. And yeah, my kids influenced me a lot. Their perspectives are unique. Their perspectives are genuine. I want to use the word, they're organic because they're 9 years old. So they hear little kids come up with these wonderful ideas and these new perceptions that I never saw. It's a wonderful thing. And yes, my kids do influence some of my writing. Yeah, you'll hear maybe some when you buy the book. Anything else, brother?
Awesome. Viviana Hall commented, thank you, Jaime. Together, united, we contribute to needed change in our society while validating the capacity of each human being to transform the world. And I concur completely. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you. My next theme is going to be totally different from that theme. The next theme is love. I consider myself somewhat of a romantic. I love love. I love people. I try to be as cool as I possibly can with gente, and ojalá you'll see some expression of love here. And this poem is called, real short title, Love. Love is an island, unique, exotic, romantic, foreign, lovely, beautiful, and everlasting. And like an island, it is organically created, not man-made. It stands alone amongst a sea of beauty which harbors dangers like hate, greed, jealousy, anger, and vengeance. Yet love rises above it all because it is natural, it's pure, unpredictable, volcanic, and organic. Love can rupture and rise high into the sky and make any man or woman an island. And the dangerous waters, which are on all sides, now become milder, distant, and unseen. For the island, like all islands, grows taller and wider with time. Because it is volcanic and organic, love can always grow larger with time. Now, personally, I really dig this poem. I hope you all take a second to suck some of this in. I hope you see the imagery of La Isla y el Amor and the comparison as both of them being part of Mother Nature, you know? And the verse where it says that there's dangerous waters around the island, you know, that's love. That's amor between human beings. Of course, there's gonna be dangers around us all the time. Pero ojalá, with time, love's just gonna grow and everything else will become distant to us. That's the beautiful thing about human beings, man. We get to love, we get to grow. We get to see stuff, experience stuff, and I hope that poem resonated, those kind of thoughts. My next poem is called Mi Corazón, and it's gonna have some movement in it, so bear with me. Mi corazón. I hear a noise and do not move as if paralyzed. Boom, boom, boom. Beep, beep, beep. Bop, bop, bop. And still, I can't move, or I won't move. There is an action, but no reaction. Only silence and stillness. A body that will not react. A mind that will not think. Eyes that will not blink. Only silence and stillness occupies the room, and I hear boom, 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 beep, 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 bop, bop, bop. My heart rages on with the fury of sounds, and still my body does not comply and respond. Finally, in the dead of night, I lay my body to rest, ignoring my heart's wants and desires, knowing that tomorrow brings another day of agony and defeat, for the simple reason that I do not acknowledge what my heart wants and needs. She is so beautiful, and I'm scared of that beauty, for I am not a handsome man, but a beast. A beastly man in love with a heavenly angel. Boom, 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 beep, 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 bop, bop, bop. My heart rages on, and still I do not comply. I don't make a move. I don't tell her how I feel. Instead, I'm content to rest here and die. Thank you very much. Man, I dig those love poems. I hope it resonates with as many people as possible, the last two poems. And once again, if there's any questions or comments, I would love to hear some. I mean, this is why we writers write, for the purpose of engagement and dialogue, for a critique, for some criticism, whether it's positive or negative. We as writers embrace this stuff. So I'm gonna pass it to Jeremiah, and if he or anyone has questions or comments, I would appreciate hearing something, because love, it's a universal thing. It happens to all of us.
Thank you, Jaime. We did have a question that came in a little bit ago from Eddie Garrison. Asked, do you get to share your poems with your students, and do they write and share poems too?
Yes, I do get to share my poetry with my students. I'll say this, pobrecitos, my students, they're a captive audience. I mean, they have to listen to my poetry. And yes, we do offer them the opportunity to write back. And my class is special. I'm gonna say this, my class is a very unique classroom where kids get this opportunity to get up, sing, dance, and present their poetry, present their thoughts. You got to understand, when you're 9 years old, man, presenting in front of your peers, that's a hard thing to do. But there's so much love in the classroom and so much respect. It's amazing to see even the shyest kids will stand up and want to share their poetry, their writing, their thoughts, which is what teaching is all about, man. It's all about building that security and the self-confidence, the self-esteem, to the point in which a child feels confident enough to, no matter who's around, to get up and speak.
Definitely, man. And we have a few more questions as well. And I just want to say to your answer, how beautiful that is, especially in our modern day technological society with social media and being on electronics so much. And I've read this several times, that especially with the youth, it messes with their self-confidence, it messes with our risk-taking abilities, our interaction, our social interaction abilities. So for you to provide that opportunity in your classroom, beautiful, brother, beautiful. Jane Sweeney says, me siento tan feliz en escuchar estas palabras tan fuerte.
Wow, thank you, Miss Jane. Appreciate that.
Hector Alvarez. Hey, Hector. Maestra Cuello, can you share even more advice to those new and upcoming teachers, and especially so-called veteran teachers, on how to be more real, authentic, courageous educators, and also share how you have, for over 20 plus years, disrupted the limitations of educational standards to be such a transformative educators? To be such a transformative educator. And the last note, thanks for teaching our community. I know it was a lot.
Well, gracias, brother Hector. Thank you. Appreciate that. But as far as the education of teachers, one piece of advice that I often give my gente at Cal Poly is, we gotta let these people who are gonna be teaching our kids be courageous. That we kind of shackle new teachers into thinking that the norm is be on page 1 on day 1 and be on page 2 on day 2. And we all know learning and the system does not work that way. And we all know that you need to be courageous enough to bring in your cultura, your experiences to the classroom. And on top of that, you got to understand the children that you're working with. If you're working with a predominantly Latino group, then you should invest some time and energy to attend Latino events, invest in some books by Latinos to share with your kids. So yeah, Hector, there's just too much work here, brother. It's a lot of work to be done. And my advice is, one, everybody has to be true to themselves first. If you ain't true to yourself, there's nothing that anybody can do. Nobody can change your mindset. So you have to be open enough to change your own mindset. And two, you have to be courageous enough to teach outside the box. I won't tell you what I do, brother, because the man is watching. But anyways, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, we have a question from Lara Murray. Jaime, why do we need poetry now more than ever?
You know, you kind of touched on it earlier, Jeremiah. With all this technology, I'm looking for my cell phone so I can grab it. With all this technology, kids are getting fed bad crap, for lack of a better word. With everything at your fingertips, cualquier menso, any ignorant person is kind of, I don't know if this is the right word or not, but preaching to our children. So yeah, we need poetry back. We need to have this short, sweet, concise piece of information that's potent enough to create change in a child's life, and not just a child, even an adult's life. One of my critiques about my poetry was they're too short. You need to elaborate more. And I say, no, because we can only focus for like about 20 seconds, maybe 30 at the max. So you have to now, a poet has to now condense a lot of thought into a couple of verses and then still make it impactful enough to keep the attention of the child. Like you said earlier, when we're competing with Nintendo, we're competing with Google, we're competing with everything that's out there in the world. So poetry has its place. It's a great way to impact the child because it can be as snappy as a beat, as rhythmic as possible to one, catch the ear, two, catch the eye, three, catch the brain. Pero más importante, we gotta capture our kiddos' hearts. So that's why poetry needs to come back, man. And we gotta read a little bit. Without sounding preachy, I'm not asking you to go out and read for 30 minutes, but we can all read for 2 minutes. So why not pick up some poetry because it's short, sweet, and to the point. Good question, good comment. I hope I answered it.
Simon, I think that was great, man. And one last question from Patricia Solario. Are you back in your classroom? How is that? Or how is the Zooming going, if not?
Everything is Zoom right now, but you know what? Safety first, Patricia, safety first. But it is difficult. It's a difficult process because I hope I'm coming off as charismatic. I hope I'm coming off as somebody who has passion and energy. And it's hard to deliver this passion, this energy, this charisma to the kids, to have them model and hopefully copy a little bit of you and have that be incorporated into their lives when all we can do is this distance learning via Zoom. So, ojalá, we can get back to the classroom, but safety first, man, safety first. It's difficult.
Most definitely, I agree, man. Well, Jaime, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your words. We appreciate you. And I look forward to, speaking with you again soon.
All right, then. I guess my session's up. All right, everybody. Mira, gracias for allowing me to partake in this. I do appreciate it. Peace, love to everybody. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again for being here with us. Next in our program, we have a very special panel for you that will be talking about social and economic justice. And the lineup on this panel is solid. So, through their work, each of these individuals have fought for justice in our communities with the goal of creating a lasting change. And again, I encourage you all to just think about change. What is change to you? What do you envision as change? So some background on our panelist. Catherine Trujillo, pronoun she, her, hers, is a curator originally from East Los Angeles. Curator Catherine Trujillo was guided into arts by her maternal grandmother, who raised her and who celebrated their ancestors and cultural heritage from New Mexico. She uses Chicanismo and BIPOC feminist lens as a way to enact radical change. She does this work with collaborators and colleagues to name, question, and intervene in racism within arts, academia, and communities. Her lived experiences and background in community engagement have shaped her academic career within museums, archives, and libraries, growing her expertise in the stewardship of cultural histories, storytelling, publishing, and design. Her work focuses on creating long-standing contributions to the cultural life of the community with a commitment for the preservation and dissemination of underrepresented voices in history and art. She oversees California Polytechnic State University's Robert E. Kennedy Library Creative Works Department, which supports alternative approaches to scholarship with a commitment to amplify underrepresented topics and voices. Along with digital publishing research fellow Jaime Dean, they do this by shaping, sharing, and fueling stories with collaborators in art, exhibits, and digital publishing. They do this on the lands of Yaktilhini, the Northern Chumash tribe, which we are grateful guests. And fun fact, her favorite poet is Michelle Serros. Our second panelist, Zulema Aleman, excuse me, Zulema Aleman. Her pronoun she, ella, is a community organizer with cause. Her self-bio, I grew up in the various cities in the LA area, but I never had a city I could call home. I moved to the Central Coast in 2013 and decided to lay roots here as I fell in love with the people and their strength and power to push for change against all odds. I've been working for cause since April 2019 on farm worker and immigrant issues and ensuring our local government invests in youth of color. Our community has shown how resilient and wise it is, and empowering these communities is my priority so we can have a Santa Maria that loves and embraces its community. It's time our people get a seat at the table and we're going to speak for themselves and be answered to. And her favorite poet is Jessica Salgado. Our third panelist, Leo Ortega, pronouns he, him, and he is a Chicano Renaissance leader. His self-bio, my name is Leo Degario Ortega, but I go by Leo Ortega, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm 20 years old, and I'm currently attending Allen Hancock College, pursuing my studio arts degree. I grew up in Santa Maria, and growing up in this community gave me a vision for a better future after witnessing friends and family members fall into gangs and drug use. There aren't many resources for the youth, especially for kids like me growing up in struggling neighborhoods. I come from a farm working family. My parents are strawberry pickers, and I am also a farm worker. I'm grateful that I am able to experience the struggles of my community because it's what inspires me to make change. Music and art have been a big part of my life growing up. Seeing my older brothers create tattoo designs and crazy Chicano drawings, and also their morning freestyle raps before going to school. As a young kid, they inspired me to write my own poetry, expressing my thoughts and emotion, the struggles I faced through the eyes of a kid in the community. As a creative, I want to create a creative environment where for the youth, where they can express their passion for art and music like other Latino communities. My favorite poet is Jimmy Santiago Baca, a famous Chicano poet known for writing the screenplay of Blood In, Blood Out. One of my goals is to write a book based on the environment I grew up in, as Baca wrote his stories through poetry, as well as Francisco Jimenez, who wrote The Circuit. And our final panelist, Gloria Soto, pronoun she, her, hers, city council member of Santa Maria District 3. Gloria was born and raised and educated in Santa Maria. She comes from an immigrant family whose example taught her the value of hard work and determination, whose parents made numerous sacrifices to ensure she would have a chance at a better life. Gloria took advantage of every opportunity that her family and community offered her. She was part of the first graduating class of Pioneer Valley High School, and she holds degrees from Allen Hancock College and Chapman University. Well, to our audience, our four panelists, again, Catherine Trujillo, Zulema Aleman, Leo Ortega, and Gloria Soto. And please stay tuned for our social and economic justice panel.
Thanks everybody for being here. My name is Mario Espinoza Kulik. So the first question to ask all of our panelists tonight are, what are some of the pressing issues of injustice/inequality in our local communities?
I have some thoughts on this. I think being a member of some social justice organizations, including the Central Coast Coalition for Undocumented Student Success, being a parent of a now adult child on the Central Coast, and being involved in the arts, I think one of the issues that I feel is really important to unpack and examine is the K through 12, the academic profiling of disparities in terms of access to honors classes, AP classes, and general access to higher education. I think I've been witness to some of the school counselors and administrators creating these hierarchies between students' performance based on their gender, their race, ethnicity, the socioeconomic status. So preventing them from getting, even though they might have GPAs that let them into those AP or honors classes, there's gatekeeping happening, so that because there's so many limited maybe spaces, or there might be more affluent or other white students that are getting positioned into those classes. And so thus students of color are being barred from four-year university options. So I had that experience with my daughter here on the Central Coast. And I think Dr. Gilda Ochoa was a fellow that was here a few years ago at Cal Poly. She's a professor of sociologist, and she wrote about this in her book. So I think it really is an issue that needs to be more in the forefront, and for us to educate families to be advocates for their children. And I think there's a lot of fear and concern for parents not to question authority, especially school administrators or teachers or counselors, but we need to question and intervene in those racist actions and that are preventing our Black and Brown and Asian students from succeeding and going into higher education. So I think that's one of the injustices that I've seen here on the Central Coast. And then the second, I think that's really important, especially for Santa Maria Valley, is the increase in ICE surveillance and detainment. So there's the myth that they're not doing knock warrants, administrative warrants. They're really spending time surveilling people and individuals, picking up individuals who might not have been under that original surveillance order. So that's really concerning with the prevalence of that, especially with having an ICE field office in Santa Maria. I think those are really two pressing issues of injustice and inequality that I'm witnessing, and then being part of those organizations that are trying to interrupt those disparities. So.
Yeah, I can add on a little bit about the issues going on in K through 12. One of my roles is being a youth organizer, so working with high school students in Santa Maria. That's the narrative that I keep hearing, either not getting enough time with counselors because there's not enough counselors, or being encouraged by counselors to not try for AP classes or for anything harder. And just I don't know if disempowerment is a word, but just not making students feel like they have a voice or they have something worth sharing. I think that that's something that it's so heartbreaking to hear when I'm working with youth in Santa Maria, that they feel like what they want to talk about or the problems that they're facing at home or in schools or in their communities, it's not worth sharing, or it's not worth even for us as adults to listen to. And I grew up with that same, mentality that was put onto me. You're too young, kids should be seen, not heard. And just in my role, I'm happy to be able to work with youth so closely and work for ways to empower them and let them be able to grow as leaders in our community, and feel like they're part of the community and that they can make good decisions and smart decisions for themselves and their communities as well. But there's only so much that we can do as like nonprofits or as, a youth organizer outside of their school. There's only so much that I can reach even, right? I don't have the capacity to be there for every single student that goes through the education system locally. So I think definitely like investing in youth of color is a huge issue, that we need to, be creating a college going culture, giving them options of what to do. And not only that, but involving them in our local community issues, not just, you can only talk about school and that's it, but what's going on in the community, what programs are available for you, with crime rates, anything like that, like hearing them out, involving them early on into our like local government and their civic engagement, so that they can feel like, they're actually part of the community and not just siloed to only things that have to do with youth. So for sure, that's something that for me really, really stands out, and it's one of the things that I noted.
So one of the things that I've noticed as one of the most pressing issues here in the city of Santa Maria that really impact equality is the fear that COVID-19 has really brought on to our communities. I think that before, a lot of us were already really aware of the racial disparities that existed, but COVID-19 has really exponentially highlighted them. And so it's really devastating to see the fears that a lot of our residents have around, missing work. Even though we have protections, under the law that allow people to take sick time, that fear is still very real. That fear of losing income or losing their work is there, and it's very real. And so what we are seeing is that people of color, primarily immigrants here on the Central Coast, are being infected at higher rates, but they are also losing income at much faster rates. And so finding ways in which we can level out the playing field by putting in place safety net policies is incredibly crucial. And even though in cities like Santa Maria, we have eviction moratoriums, that only goes so far to protect our families. And so, what we are seeing, as some of you are talking about, education equity, just the other day, I read an article about students, working on their schoolwork out of their car outside of a Starbucks because they don't have access to good Wi-Fi, good internet access. And so finding ways to support families during this really difficult time, but then also making sure that we are supporting families in a way that allows their students to be successful, because they are the next generation. And so by not allowing them that opportunity to be successful in their studies, by hindering their learning, we are only increasing this inequity that we are seeing.
To add on to that, especially for like coming from like the farm working community, I've seen like with the COVID fear and all that, I've seen like a lot of farm worker families struggling through also through work, but also the children struggling, like Gloria mentioned. And also there isn't like enough programs or support that towards like farm work for the farm workers. But so far, like I'm glad to see like nonprofits like MyCop and Cause helping out those farm workers that need the support. And I feel like as a city, we should recognize these farm workers and the struggles, and and try to support as a whole community, support these people who are the backbone of the community, who make Santa Maria strive, right? And that's what I'm really like coming from, since I'm a farm worker myself, so I get to experience all the struggles that they're facing too. So that's something that I want to put out there.
Thanks everybody for sharing your knowledge with us about the social issues and the injustice that you've seen in your roles in the community. Related to that, I wanted to also ask, how is activism today influencing policy and social change, especially in regard with issues that were just mentioned, like the farm worker conditions, education, activism, getting involved in things like that. But how does getting involved influence policy and social change?
I think one of the ways that I've been able to see that is just having more people involved in activism allows for people to learn about the issues that are going on. So they might just be coming to an event or something for one reason, and they walk out with so much knowledge about what's going on. And especially, you know, there's been so much bad things that have come from COVID. I don't want to be like, it's been such a great time, because it hasn't. But I think that it has a lot for people to really, really face reality and even face situations that we are blind to as people who might not be farm workers. And seeing how putting that pressure to create policies that provide more protections or provide a safer work environment for, like, for example, for farm workers. We've definitely seen that. Just like I'm a youth organizer, I also get to organize farm workers. And just recently we got to work with one specific company and the farm workers there because they were inspired by what was going on nationally, and that itself pushed for policies within the company to change. It also inspired people to actually turn out to the Board of Supervisors meeting. We had like over 40 people come out and talk about how necessary specific policies for farm workers and their working conditions should be changed. And that was something really awesome. I feel like people are really stepping up. And in stepping up, right, civically, you're able to actually voice your concerns to the people who are making decisions for all of us, and kind of not let it get away with just, oh, well, just, you know, Cause went, or my cop again went to city council or went to Board of Supervisors again. But it's like, no, like it's 40 community members waking up early, you know, skipping maybe their break to be able to do a phone call and call in. And all of that is influencing change, which is really awesome.
I think some of the crossover that's happening is, you know, it really has to do with social change, and it's coming from these community-led organizations that really maybe not have existed pre-COVID. You know, I think with the pandemic and with the racial injustice protests and movement that's happening across our nation and within our community here on the Central Coast, that these community-led efforts are being stronger because we're partnering with these nonprofits, right? It's not coming, the social change and the policy, I don't see coming from many agencies that are typically showing up during these times of crises. There's a lot of grassroots organizing that has popped up out of necessity because the community's not getting their needs met. You know, I know, like for the Central Coast Coalition for Undocumented Student Success, we've been really involved in so many different areas, collaborating with other groups such as Cause and others to address some of the needs, you know, especially creating the resource guide that we co-created with different organizations to get some of the needs met during that very first start of the pandemic. But I think what I'm also seeing in terms of social change is across social media and digital activism. It's played such a large role to harness this like kind of new age of media to amplify the protest cries, kind of incorporating this new way of dissent, you know, of digital dissent. That's been really amazing to see, you know, that visual communication of information, to share resources, know your rights trainings that we've done through social media, protests that are actually happening and popping up. And then just, I think these social media users have this more media fluency, and that they can navigate different information and interpret that so that it's creating this movement and knowledge. And it's amongst our geographical area that this is more efficient in terms of disseminating information, learning about some new resource or tool. And it's also allowed people to witness incidents of injustice and inequality that to garner more attention, you know. And then also that if we speak to like the arts, right, we're seeing artists paired with graphic designers, paired with just social justice organizers, you know. It's the Central Coast and Santa Maria have really come together to organize in these digital platforms. And that to me is incredible.
At the local level, it's been fascinating to witness how activism has really shifted the way that policy is written out. Earlier this year, right around the beginning of summer, the Santa Maria City Council was getting ready to adopt a new budget, a 2-year budget, and you know, during the discussions that the council members were having, we had an outpouring of folks that were outside our city chambers just demanding, you know, access to recreation services, you know, demanding that we decrease the spending on community policing. And so it was really neat to be able to see that. And even though not everything that we wanted was achieved that evening, certain concessions were made because of the number of people that were outside of City Hall. And so that's just one example of how activism is really influencing policy. Another example that we saw nationally was during the 2008 elections, when we saw a record-breaking number of women of color, first-time candidates running for office and saying that they wanted to make a difference in their communities, and that now was the time to step up and lead. And so even though grassroots organizing is incredibly important to progressive movement building, it's also important that we have elected leaders who will listen to these activists, who will listen to community, who have their ears to the ground. And so again, I believe that through elections, it's a great way that we can also see activism play out in its finest form. And so, you know, election season is here, and it's so important that we remember that so much is at stake, and that that our rights and our democracy are at stake, and that we need to make sure that people get out and vote. Mm-hmm.
As many mentioned, activism does influence a lot of like social change and policies towards the community. Like in the past, I would see a lot of activism through social media, and I would be like, it would bring me to a whole like a different perspective and make me understand the struggles that, you know, a lot of people are facing. And it, you know, it really caught my attention, because I was like, wow, you know, there's so many things happening in the community that I'm not aware of, or nor I wasn't like, you know, exposed to. So I feel like it's really important that, you know, that we educate our community with, you know, all the issues that are happening.
Thanks everybody for sharing your thoughts on activism. It's very important to be aware of, you know, like you all said, what's going on in our communities and listening to our communities. And one thing that made me think about is like, well, how do people get started with becoming involved, and how do you learn how to become an activist, things like that, right? Where people might be barely starting up and being, you know, having a light sparked in them with everything that's going on in our country today, even in our own local communities. So with that, how can more people get involved in social justice efforts here in Santa Maria?
Well, I'll go ahead and start with answering that question. You know, one of the things that I find incredibly interesting is how little information is actually disseminated to community, right? And so the first step is to make sure that we are as informed as possible, in regards to what's happening in your own local community. I know that there's so much attention going to the national stage, but I think it's really important for folks to know that people are most impacted by the policies within their own cities, within their own counties. And so we as elected officials need to make sure that, one, we are being as transparent as possible with our constituents, not only on our stances, but then also on the policies that are coming through. It's also important that we find ways to meet people where they're at. One of the things that is incredibly frustrating for me as a councilwoman is that we still lack interpretation at our council meetings. And when you live in a city where you have a large portion of Latinx residents, it's especially Spanish speaking residents, it's incredibly important that, again, we do what we can to meet people where they're at. And so that's still one of my goals and objectives to try and achieve. Because again, the best way for folks to start is by, one, learning how government works, what commissions and commission meetings they need to be paying attention to, but then also it's our responsibility as elected leaders to meet our residents where they're at, and again, give them the information that's coming their way. And then also engage them in the decision-making process. I wasn't elected by just because I wanted to be, a number of residents voted for me to be in this position. And so my duty is to represent them. And so when important decisions are coming our way, it's important that we keep them in mind and that we try to engage them as much as possible. I mean, going back to the budget discussions, I didn't feel comfortable voting without first hearing from my constituents. And so finding innovative ways, right? Whether it's putting out surveys, whether it's through social media, whether it's by emailing a set of small business owners in the city of Santa Maria just to ask what their concerns are or to ask what their needs are during this time of COVID-19 is one step closer. It gets us one step closer in being as transparent as possible. But again, a lot of it really falls on being informed, but then also the electeds and the government agencies disseminating that information and meeting folks where they're at.
Sorry, I was so engaged with what you're saying. I was thinking of Leo and your interests, but I think, how can you get people involved in social justice efforts? I think, especially in the arts, I think it's through community, creativity. Well, it's through creativity and community care, right? I think all of us here on this panel have that in common. We care about the community. We deeply, deeply care. And how do you do that creatively? I think it's hearing ideas, putting resources towards maybe indigenous artists, local artists, paying them for their creativity in ways. We at Cal Poly launched something called Central Coast Snapshots, and it was out of the pandemic. We are seeing what you spoke to, Gloria, about the disparities in Black and brown lives. The pandemic has been just wreaking havoc. We created this Central Coast Snapshots to gather stories and center perspectives of those really historically marginalized on the Central Coast. And having these stories can take shape in any form. So interviews, photos, art, videos, journals, all different types of methods. And then having it be led by the community. So we have community cultural workers in Santa Maria who are working on projects. And it's really engaging the community in talking about the larger issues, but actually seeing this creativity move forward, that it can be shared more broadly and widely, so that you have that connection that individuals can make with those projects. Some of the projects, one is called June Fist, a community-driven record of the protests and solidarity for Black lives. So we're looking at the underrepresented voices in those movements. Like you see the stories in the local media, but we really want to talk to the people on the ground who were impacted and who are actually doing that solidarity work to protect Black lives. And then there's a project called Letters from a Pandemic, where we're doing this interactive storytelling project using old school correspondence, like pen pals, right? You spoke to Zulema, and I think Leo, even Gloria spoke to a lot of people don't have access to technology, a lot of the students and a lot of the families. So letter writing is a good way for people to gain literacy skills, to connect with other people on the community. So we've launched that. And then we have this bulletin board through social media of snapshots of of the historically marginalized people's experience and perspectives. And so we're launching that on our social media, and then also doing social justice work in terms of creating infographics. One of them that kind of got disseminated quite widely was a infographic we titled "Organizing and Protesting to Support Black Lives." That's on the Central Coast Coalition for Undocumented Student Successes Instagram, which is ccc.undocu. If you follow that on Instagram, you can see that infographic. And really, it's about bringing our knowledge, our resources, our creativity for an artistic mutual aid in a way. Like there's so much need. People are hungry, people are being evicted, people can't pay rent. How can we harness all this interest and expertise of the community? Not only it's for the community, by the community, with the community. And so it's that collective care, community care approach.
Yeah, I can go next with answering that question. To me, when I read this question, I thought about when I first came back home after kind of going through a lot of process of unlearning a lot of, anti-Blackness and even like accepting my own privilege as a light-skinned Latina, white-passing Latina, however you want to refer to me as, and trying to talk to my parents about that. And my parents were right away, like, just the way that I was trying to talk to them was not the same language that they understood. And I think a lot of times activism or getting involved in like social justice efforts can be elitist in terms of like you have to go through this like academic knowledge and gain this higher self, and then then you're able to create all that change. And how difficult it was for me to be at a different place than my parents and wanting to bring them in, but not knowing what words to use or what examples to use. And that wasn't taught to me in academia. I was able to process that because I was paying for that knowledge, but I wasn't sure how to bring that to the community. And for me, community organizing has allowed me to kind of separate myself from that idea of academia, and kind of like what Gloria said, meeting people where they're at. How do you talk to the community about these issues, and not coming from it from a place of like, I know more than you, or because I have this fancy degree that I paid a lot of money for, I have more knowledge than you. But I don't know how to say it, but knowing that the community knows the problems. They face them every single day. They go through it every single day. If anything, they know more than I do. And really leaning into the fact that they're the experts on the social issues that affect Santa Maria. And that I can come in and learn about those issues and learn from them and grow with them, and find ways that fits for them as well. I think a lot of the times not a lot of times, all the times activism is about passion. You have to find something that sticks with you, that speaks to you. Because I don't want to get too radical, but the reality is we all have responsibilities, we all have jobs, we have families, we have things to take care of. we can't be involved in every single form of activism or everything that happens in the community, but we have to find ways that we can still contribute. Personally, I haven't been able to go to in-person protests because of my health issues. It puts me in a really, really vulnerable position. And at the beginning, I was feeling really guilty about that. I was feeling really ashamed of myself. And I was honestly going into like this depression, but at the same time feeling guilty for like, why am I focusing on me, right? But I realized that there's a lot of other ways that I can still get involved and that I can still be part of the work that's getting done in my own way that still respects the boundaries that I need to put for my own well-being. And I think it's really about that, about finding what speaks to you the most, what motivates you the most, and not feeling guilty or ashamed of like not having a degree or not having the academic knowledge or the exact language, because whatever way you put it, if you're surrounded by a community that's willing to be open-minded, that's listening with curiosity, you're going to be in a good spot and people are going to actually get something from what you have to say. And for me, working both with youth of color and farm workers and immigrants in Santa Maria, for me, that's the space that I like to create. Is just, we're going to share what we need to share. We're going to get it off our chest and say it how we need to say it. Not try to make it beautiful, pretty, and just try to work through that. Because they're really the ones that not only hold the knowledge and expertise of our community, but also the power to be able to change our community for the better.
Oh my God. Zulema, that was so beautiful. Like, my breath is taken away. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for being so authentic and sharing that.
Thank you. I'm sweating a lot.
Yeah.
To get involved with activism and, you know, for social change and social justice, I feel like, because I'm an artist myself too, but I feel like I keep a lot of work to myself. But usually the way, like, I try to depict, you know, the struggles in the community is like through photography or through painting, expressing my, like, just putting out what I have inside me and just letting it out, you know, or through you know, through painting or drawing or poetry too. Like, I express myself through poetry a lot. Talk about by having, like, being, like, I don't know how to explain it, but being all person, but in one, you know, like, so put myself in a farm worker, like, perspective, or like a documented person, you know, like all the, like, you know, in the community, something that represents as a whole community, like, put yourself in their shoes and express yourself of what you see, what is wrong, you know, and then express yourself, then display it and let people know, like, oh, this is happening, this is what I see. And, you know, like, it could be, you know, it's devastating. And I feel like, you know, that's something that could inspire other artists or other people to look at your work and be like, oh, that says a lot, you know, that says a lot. And thinks that, oh, I probably see this, like, I see the same struggle as you do. And I'm really, like, I love, like, Chicano culture. So, like, a lot of, like, the artists back in the 1970s during the Chicano movements, they had a lot of murals that represented their struggles and their identity, trying to, like, understand where we're coming from. So I feel like that's something that we could, you know, as a community in Santa Maria, since majority of us are like come from, like, Latinos descent, you know, Mexicans, Salvadoreños, my bad. And I feel like all of us have something to say through a creative way. So that's something that where I'm coming from.
That's amazing. You all are so brilliant and amazing. And I just want to take a moment and honor all of you for such an incredible, you know, ideas and commitments to the community. It's so enlightening. And I hope that our audience is also very finding themselves in this brilliance that y'all are shedding for everybody. So I also wanted to invite everybody to dialogue with each other now. If you have any questions amongst each other or comments, feel free to do so now.
You know, Leo, you're sharing your artistic practice. It really is so intriguing. And I was wondering, like, you know, during this pandemic and this national uprising, like, has your has your creative production changed? Like, are you more drawn to poetry right now? Or are you painting or drawing, or like, how are you getting that out in the times that we're in? Like,
so far, like basically what I've done throughout like this quarantine, this COVID thing, I've been trying to like learn history about my roots. So I come from the indigenous community too, because my parents are Mixtec, they speak Mixteco. So I'm trying to understand, like what is like, where do we come from, and like how the past was. And I get curious, so I ask my parents questions. And through there, I started writing down poetries about like that represent this community, this indigenous community, and also like try to engage with the way they depicted the arts in Mexico, in Oaxaca, Mexico, and try to understand what they were trying to say. Like, I mean, yeah, well, I feel like that's more of a trying to find your identity in a place, but also as a farm worker, I've seen like, I've gone out, but I got inspired looking at farm workers, just like, looking at them and, the way they work, the way they, like basically sacrifice themselves to like, to make a living out of like farm working and trying to support their own families. And I got inspired to like, hopefully if I could make it happen, try to do like sort of like a project. Since I'm a photographer, I want to like sort of like do portraits of farm workers working in the fields, if that's even possible, and sort of like displaying their faces, because I feel like faces explain a lot of stories through, like through portrait pictures especially. So that's an inspiration that came in my mind like a while ago, but I haven't had the chance to work on it. So I feel like, there's a lot of things to do to like express and show the world like the things that are out there.
amazing. So great. Okay.
I was just going to say, Zulema, something that you said during your last response really hit home for me. When you were talking about academia, one of the things that I've always been really self-conscious about has been my educational trajectory, because it was very different from that of some of my peers and colleagues. I didn't get accepted into Cal Poly. I was rejected twice. And, I'm a proud Bulldog. I went to Hancock, but like I said, I was rejected from Cal Poly twice. And because I felt like time was money and I just needed to graduate to start making a living, I was really close to just saying, well, I got my associate's degree, that's enough. But luckily, Chapman University has a satellite campus here in Santa Maria, and I was able to get my studies done through there and still stay at home and help my family out. But it was really rough. And when right before the opportunity to run for council came up, I was feeling a lot of self-doubt because I don't have a master's degree. I don't have, I felt like I was lacking a lot for more education. And so, one of the biggest fears that I had when I announced my candidacy was the learning curve, and that fear of like, you're not educated enough to take on this role kept ringing in my ear. And so you're absolutely right. Like, you don't need a degree to take on these positions. And so I just really want to, thank you for saying that and for uplifting that, because it's true. We get so cut off on academia when we're realizing, right, that having a degree is such a privilege that not everybody gets to have. And so when we're talking about equity, we need to talk about what that looks like when we're demanding, right, or requiring certain degrees for certain job positions, And so, anywho, I'm going off on tangents now, but I just really want to thank you for uplifting that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, for me, that piece is especially with going through my 4-year and being like, well, I already invested like 3 years, so might as well finish up and keep going and try to find ways. And honestly, being heartbroken when I was in academia and even afterwards, and just like lacking just unlearning a lot of things. And I also see that with a lot of the youth that I get to work with, where we're uplifting, students who are going to 4-year universities, but not every student is set up to be able to go to a 4-year. Even if they have the grades, they might have to stay at home to take care of their siblings. It just might not be the route, that they can take at that moment. And so finding that balance of like celebrating our students who are like pushing against stereotypes and are pushing against, those statistics that bring Latino and Indigenous and Black youth down, but at the same time, uplifting and respecting the path that other students decide to take that are not necessarily always academia focused. Their intentions might be on building a family or figuring things out. I think that's one of the things that I know that a lot of people might just roll their eyes when I say this, but part of me wishes that I had done community college. Like, I would have figured out a lot of other stuff first. I went through a lot of changes at Cal Poly, and I was kind of like, I can't change my mind now. Like, I can't afford to change my mind. Like, quite literally, I do not have the money to change my mind 2 years in. If I had come in to a 4-year university with more under my belt, I would have gone with ethnic studies and not made psychology my focus instead. And then even going through, like, seeing my brother's route and how he got a couple of associate degrees as well, and his path has completely changed into what he's doing now. And it's like, we have to uplift those experiences. And even if there is, no formal education, that doesn't take you away, like you said, from being able to reach opportunities or even being at the table. Like, a degree, all it is a piece of paper and a lot of debt that you accumulate, really. I'm very grateful for the privilege of being able to have a formal education and to go to Cal Poly, and Cal Poly truly radicalized me. But at the same time, I don't think that those things should be, prerequisites to being able to be involved in the community or being able to find solutions and being part of the decision-making process, for sure. I think that's really toxic for anyone to uphold those beliefs.
And I'm also struck with this, and you inspired me so much, Zulema, with what you shared. But it creates these hierarchy and gatekeeping, right? You don't have this credential, so you don't have anything worth to say, right? And our community does have something to say. We come out, the community comes super diverse of lived experience, maybe education, maybe vocational, maybe a trade, farm working, maybe a stay-at-home parent who, because of income needs, right? I think that is so important for us to say and honor. And I'm a college dropout. I'm in academia, and the discrimination I have faced because I don't have that college degree, I've fought against that my whole entire life in my career. And I have expertise of lived experience, of training, of so many other different paths that I totally see and honor all these different ways to do this work. And academia is almost dead anyway. The pandemic has destroyed it. So I think we're going to be looking at, except for Mario, doing things differently. So sorry, Mario. But we're looking at, it's changed. The equity, it's either opened up a path because someone can do online learning now, right? If you have the technology and the equipment. So you might be able to do that master's program or go to a 4-year university because it's remote, because you couldn't afford certain things or something. Or we're just looking at, I want to flip it and create a new system, another world of educating our youth. I think we can invent new ways to see things, new ways to do things. It's an opportunity to level the playing field, because it's not level now, and there's a lot of discrimination that takes place.
Thanks everybody for sharing your thoughts. I wanted to ask Leo if you had something that you wanted to contribute with particularly the youth voice, which I feel like ties into this connection, right? With these gatekeeping practices, especially education, we don't really get to hear a lot from the youth in our communities.
Well, yeah, back in high school, which was like I think almost 3 years ago. Yeah, my counselor at the time wasn't really helpful, so it really like discouraged me at the moment. So, and also I didn't get much guidance on like what I wanted to do in the future. So at that time, I was just like, I was like, oh wow, I'm just going to Hancock and see how it goes through there. And then I feel like through my first semester at Hancock, that's where I met my like an actual like counselor that guided me, and then it showed me like what were my passions were about. So I feel like yeah, there's something that needs to be like there needs to be change in like in the K through 12 like system with counseling. So yeah.
You think about the K through 12, and I know Santa Maria just passed the ethnic studies for all. Is that what just got passed? That is really vital, right? Think about how life-changing that's going to be for our youth, in terms of them understanding their own histories told right, and that's going to be amazing to see. Yeah. Santa Maria Joint Union, yeah.
Because I wasn't really exposed to any of that when I was in high school, so it was just like there wasn't like a lot of programs for me to look up to. So during those times, I was just like a whole different person. So that's where, like, I guess senior year, that's where I started like thinking, oh, what do I want to do? Like, or like, what's out there for me? Or like, who am I? Like, what do I want to do in life? What's my purpose? So, and then through college, that's where I started like, oh, digging myself out. I planted my seed and now it's growing. So, like right now, I'm learning a lot and being involved.
All right. I think we might have had a little technical situation at the end. Thank you so much to our panelists, Catherine, Zulema, Leo, and Gloria. Thank you all so much. It was an amazing panel. Very moving. And again, I encourage you all to think, what does change look like to you? What do you envision as change? And I think that panel did an amazing job of expressing what they themselves see as change, as well as giving all of us an opportunity to really think about that change. So many good points were made. So many good points were made. And again, thank you all for participating and being with us today. It was amazing. So as I mentioned, with the monetary society that we live in, it is necessary. Money is necessary to pay the bills. So we do need to do a little bit of a shameless plug. And we want to encourage everyone, if you can, to make a donation to Cultural and Creative Arts Center, the Santa Maria Valley. You can do so by going to typing in tinyurl.com/donate CDP. CDP as in Corazon del Pueblo. So again, the link is tinyurl.com/donate CDP. And that is going to be in the comments. And, we encourage you all, whether it's $1 or whether it's 10, whatever you can, if you can, please consider making a donation. So that way we can continue doing events like this and live events when we are able to in the future, and continue to create programs for the community. Now, on that note, we will continue on with our program. Our next poet, our second featured poet, is Eunice Gonzalez. Eunice Gonzalez was born and raised in Santa Maria and is a proud daughter of immigrant farm workers from Oaxaca, Mexico. As a way to honor her parents' hard work, Eunice earned a bachelor's degree in Chicano studies from UCLA. Upon graduating, she returned to Santa Maria to work as a college coordinator to help the young people of her community. She later went on to earn her Master's of Art in Teaching from Brown University, where she gave a commencement speech paying homage to the resiliency of students with undocumented families. Eunice is now a middle school teacher at the middle school she attended many years ago. Talk about giving back. During her spare time, Eunice enjoys playing tennis, writing poetry, and finding diverse books for her students. If everyone please welcome and please join me in welcoming Eunice Gonzalez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jeremiah, for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here and for being able to participate and listen to some poetry, some wonderful panelists sharing their knowledge. As mentioned, my name is Eunice Gonzalez. I am a teacher in Santa Maria. I also write poetry. I feel like I have a complex relationship with poetry right now because I haven't actually written in a while. So some of my pieces will be 5 years old. Some of them will be a few months old. So I'm excited to share them with you. I'm excited to engage with you. As earlier, feel free to ask any questions in the chat or make any comments in the chat. I am gonna mostly talk about my own lived experiences as a daughter of immigrant parents, of being in a part of a mixed status family. I think that's something that we don't really talk about. In my own family makeup, I am the only citizen in my family. Both my sisters and my parents are undocumented, and I think it comes with with different challenges. And so my poetry will showcase that. I'm actually going to go ahead and just jump right into my first poem. My first poem is titled 10 Truths of Loving My Immigrant Mother. I actually wrote this poem when I first graduated from UCLA. And I had the honor of performing this poem at the Labor and Workplace Studies banquet. I got a minor of labor and workplace when I graduated from UCLA. So as I said, it's called 10 Truths of Loving My Immigrant Mother. Number 1, I am the daughter of 2 undocumented parents, a sister of 2 undocumented siblings. I wonder how you separate family based on papers, how you separate families because they don't have them. If there were a paper that stated our love for one another, would the state and the government deny that from us too? 2, I found out what papeles were at the age of 10 when I went to Mexico and my mother couldn't join me. 3, I was 11 when I learned that the absence of these papeles could take my mother and father away, like the wind can take away this sheet of paper. 4, a high school counselor once asked my sister if she had papers. She responded, "Yes, I have one here. I got an A." The counselor laughed mockingly and clarified her question. "No, I meant papers like citizenship." My sister did not apply to college after that. A border so tall that my siblings couldn't seem to see their dreams over it, so they stopped looking. A border so tall that if they tried reaching, they'd be afraid to fall to the other side and not be given the chance to come back. There are pieces of Mexico within them, too small to be remembered. They were too small to remember. There are pieces of the US within them that have fogged the memory of what home could have been if only they were given the chance to go back. These same pieces are used to deem them unworthy of complete papeles. 5, dear Republicans in Congress, frankly, fuck you. My family is not disposable. Dear Democrats in Congress, we are waiting. 6, my mother said I was conceived in Oaxaca, Mexico, where unlike here, brown is synonymous to beauty. She wants to go back with me so I can finally believe it. I think she wants to go back to stay. Is it selfish of me to want her to stay here where the US has deemed her expendable, where the US doesn't know how to love her like she deserves? The United States is like an abusive husband and the law continues to do nothing about it. 7, dear Statue of Liberty, I looked up the meaning of your name. Sources say you are an icon of freedom, a welcoming signal to immigrants arriving from abroad. Dear Statue of Liberty, they have defamed you. Like the women that worked this land, you have been used and abused. They made you lie to us. They have claimed ownership of you. They made you into an American version of La Malinche, and you've betrayed us for their satisfaction. 8. Dear Mamacita, I'm sorry this poem won't amount to much in the eyes of your survival. I am sorry that my citizenship couldn't help us out to keep you here. I am sorry that the laws weren't constructed in our favor and that the strawberries have already adopted you as their own. I admit, this poem was difficult to write. I never thought I'd confine my family to the width and length of the papers that they have yet to be given, the ones they continue hoping for. 10. I hope you know we're all fighting for you. The strawberries need to know that you can no longer be their mother. Your hands were not meant to stay in the soil for that long. Thank you. All right, so that was my first poem. And from my poem, I'm hoping that you all were able to pick up a little bit of pieces from my story and my background and my family. And so I actually wrote this 5 years ago when my parents were still in the United States. And my parents are strawberry field workers. I want to take a moment to talk about my dad for a second, because for a long time he was working in the fields, going to work, working for someone else. And I don't know when it was, I think when I was 8 or 9 or 10, he took it upon himself to grow his own strawberries. And as an undocumented person, he didn't necessarily have the avenue to buy land, but he was able to figure out how to rent land, how to buy strawberries, how to plant them, make sure he was up to date with labor laws and different laws that apply to the field of agriculture. And so for a long time, actually, during the weekends or during summer vacations, he actually took me with him, took me with both my parents to work. And so a lot of the reason why I decided to go to college and seek out an education was because of the work that I saw them do throughout my time or their time here in the US. And so that's where this poem came from. Unfortunately, my parents are no longer in the US. And because they're undocumented, they're no longer able to come back legally. And while I hope that sometime in the future, either laws will change or we will figure out a way to adjust their status, at this point in time, they're still not able to come back. And so now I'm living in a position where I am the only one that can see them. I'm the only one that can visit them because I am a citizen. And in this case, I want to honor my mother for having crossed the border 7 months pregnant. She crossed the borders January 1993. And I was born March 3rd, 1993, just a couple months after she crossed. And that's the reason why I have the privilege of carrying this passport. I have the privilege of being able to see them. I have the privilege of being able to vote. I have the privilege of being able to do a lot of things like qualify for financial aid and stuff like that. And I bring my passport here because I think it's so easy to forget about that privilege. It's so simple to be like, I'm going on a vacation to Cancun with my friends for a week, and to forget about the ability and power that this little book gives us, right? And so it's a privilege that I am always aware of, because it's a privilege that my family unfortunately does not have. And so beautifully enough, when I visit my parents, I know that the only things that I will take that are my belongings are going to be in my carry-on luggage, and the checked-in luggage will be all the things that my parents want from the US. For example, my dad loves food out here. And so when I last visited him, I took him some fettuccine Alfredo, not cooked. We cooked it over there. And I took him a few other things from here. And when I come back, that same maleta is full of bread from Oaxaca. It is full of pumpkin seeds and chapulines. It is full of their culture that they bring back to my uncles and aunts and my sisters. So this passport is a privilege, and it's important for us to never forget that. I'm gonna go ahead and read another poem, and then maybe we can take a quick break to see if there are any questions or comments in the chat. So this poem is called The Way the Border Breaks. Again, similar theme, but I actually wrote this after they left. And I think it's important to share before I read that my parents, my mom's lifelong dream, which is known as the American dream, is to buy a house in the United States. And my mom actually was able to buy a house in the United States. My parents were able to do that. However, quickly after they bought that house, they decided to go back. My grandfather, my mom's dad was ill, and so she decided to go back. And a few months after, my dad decided to join her. So there are pieces of that in this poem, and it is called The Way the Border Breaks. Mommy broke herself in half in 1993 when she came to the USA. Mommy broke herself in fourths 23 years later when she left it. Mommy broke her back for this country. Mommy broke her knees at the hands of her labor. She carries her limp with her now as a reminder of how ungrateful the USA is. She carries her limp with her in Mexico now as a reminder of how it forgot to say stay. Mommy's arms are stretched out on that side, yearning for the daughters on this side, yearning for the daughters she can no longer see, the ones without papeles, yearning for the grandchildren growing up without her. Mommy's arms are stretched out on that side, yearning for the house she bought on this side and owns, but can no longer live in. What an American dream, to buy a house on a land that didn't want to keep her. I throw away the keys. I throw away the pillow. I wake up. Papi's entire being is in mourning, mourning the life he built in the US. Papi's entire body aches for a land that didn't want him. I wonder if they'll ever thank him for the way he loved this land. I wonder if they'll ever thank him for the strawberries he raised. I wonder if they'll thank him for making this place sweeter than before. America broke my father's back. America broke my father's heart, broke him again and again, a torch that failed to light the way. Lady Liberty is a liar. Lady Liberty doesn't liberate anyone or anything at all. Lady Liberty has no light anymore. Don't know if she ever did. Papi can no longer see. Spent so much time in the sweetness he created, he got diabetes, taking away his vision of a life on this side, taking away his vision of a life, taking away his vision. All those who have had my parents' fruit always claim it's the sweetest they've ever tasted. Strawberries are never quite the same without their hands, without their care, without them. Strawberries aren't ever quite the same. They're no longer sweet. This place is no longer sweet. I don't think it ever was. With red-stained hands, I don't think it ever will be. Thank you. So I'm gonna send it over to Jeremiah to see if there are any comments or questions on the chat for me.
Thank you, Eunice. Heavy. You're getting a lot of love. I'll tell you what, you're getting a lot of love. Catherine Trujillo asks, how can we see some more of your work, including the poems you shared with us?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm a little shy with my work, and I have this thing where I'm like constantly trying to remind myself to share it a little more. I used to have a blog, but that kind of doesn't exist anymore. So I'm thinking I can bring something back. I guess we can see if maybe y'all can help me out and contact some publishers, because I feel like the publishing industry is unfortunately not as diverse as it should be. I do have a few poems published in an anthology. It is called LGBTQ Women of Color, Solace Through Writing, something like that. I'll look it up and put it in the chat. I have 3 poems or 2 poems and a short story. So that's one of the ways. Otherwise, I need to work on that.
Awesome. Definitely encourage you to, put it out there. Your voice needs to be heard. And let's go ahead and, continue on.
Yeah, thank you. So I have one more poem with this similar topic that I'm going to read and share, and I have two other ones that I may read, but I really like this poem, and it has a similar theme. It's called Sundays. For those of you who are part of the Latinx community, what I remember on Sunday mornings is just waking up, knowing as Sunday is the day of rest for many field workers. Even they get Sunday off, and so that's when my parents were home. And these are just a few things that I remember from those moments with them. Sunday mornings meant rancheras. Sunday mornings meant Ramon Ayala, Los Tigres del Norte, sometimes Las Jilguerías. Meant mommy didn't work like she did Monday through Saturday. She worked like she worked Sundays. Sundays meant fabuloso, the purple kind, and pine saw creating its own scent, an alarm clock tugging at my senses. Sunday mornings meant mommy waiting to wake us up at 8 a.m. was generous because on Sundays, she met the morning at 7 as opposed to her usual 4 a.m. greeting. Occasionally, it meant mommy making pancakes like the Americans we were supposed to become, never adding chocolate chips like on Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire because that was a step too far away from immigrant. Pancakes, butter, and syrup would do. Pancakes, butter, syrup, and survival would be sweet enough for us. Sundays meant showers before 11 a.m. because mass began at 12. Meant if we were running late, we'd go to the 2 p.m. mass instead. Meant if soccer was on, dad would sin for not wanting to go, but he would go anyway because mommy always had the last word in this house, in this country. Sometimes Sundays after church meant going to eat at McDonald's or Burger King because we couldn't really afford a restaurant, but that was okay because mommy got a break, although she never really wanted one. Why didn't she ever want one? Sundays after church meant homework because, like I still do, I always waited to the last minute, but I do it anyway because mommy taught me better, taught me to want to be taught here. Sundays meant home. On Sundays, we had a home, although small, although fleeting. On Sundays, mommy and papi were not consumed by their labor. They did not become their labor. They had a chance to be parents, to rest, to be present. Sundays meant a break from all this country forced them to be. Sundays meant family, church, and a home, all of us finally together. I want my Sundays back. I want 8 a.m. mornings back. Fabuloso and pine saw, rancheras, mommy and papi here. Thank you, everyone. That was my poem, Sundays. And I'm gonna go ahead and end with, I wanna end with a queer poem. I feel like I encompass a lot of identities. I identify as a queer woman of color from a mixed status family. And so I have a poem that I wrote that is called How to Tame a Hurricane. So I wrote this poem in 2016 in November. There was a big hurricane. I was watching the news and they said something about this is a category 3 hurricane. And I wondered, what does that mean? So I looked it up and I found out that hurricanes have different levels of how dangerous they are. So category 1 is it's a hurricane. It's not that dangerous. Category 5 is catastrophic. It's really bad, really dangerous. And so I think about queer love as being able to disrupt heteronormativity and being able to challenge societal norms. And so I wrote this poem about a girl that I had a crush on. And it's called How to Tame a Hurricane. I had a crush on her and we were just becoming friends. This was about 3 years ago. And so now I have the privilege of being in a relationship and being in love with this woman. So I'm gonna share what I wrote long, long ago. How to Tame a Hurricane. Category 1, I take off my glasses. I let you see what I see, sometimes blurry, sometimes unsure of what this is, hoping you lead the way because I've gotten lost before. This time, getting lost with you is a detour I'm willing to take. Category 2, I take off my sweater. because somehow you make it feel warm. You make it feel like the sun shines at 9 p.m. Your smile reminds me that you swallowed a star whole, and now the 9 planets surround you, smiling right back. Category 3, I take off my lips. Leave them gently on your skin, on your shoulders, in the places of yourself you can't seem to love back. I leave them in the glove compartment of your car to remind you the drive home loves having you, to remind you that wherever you go, my lips will follow. I leave them on your lips to remind you that you are my favorite poem. Category 4, I take off my skin, my brown and beautiful skin, to remind you that where we come from came the warriors, that where we come from came mujeres who know how to love hard, who knew how to fight harder. I take off my skin and leave it on your bed, ready to hug you when your tongue gets a little tired from screaming, from wanting to make a difference, because you do. Darling, you do. I take off my skin and leave it on your skin, craving for you to welcome it home. Category 5, I take off my heart, leave it on your doorstep like I've tried to many times before. I hope that you don't return to sender. I'm running out of stamps, running out of hope, running out of blood, pumping love in and out of this beating thing I hand you. I take off my heart and you give me yours. And together we tame this storm. We tame this storm and fly. Thank you. Just a side note, the reason why I decided to compare this to hurricanes is because I feel like, I think it's not dangerous. I think it's dangerous to heteronormativity. And I think it's important for us to be brave about who we are and be unapologetic about who we are. And so love is revolution. And I think that's also why I decided to include this poem in this set, because there's just so much going on in the world that it gets really hard to be hopeful and to stay positive and to be uplifted. And so, you know, if you have a partner that loves and supports you and joins you in on this fight for social justice, it's important to recognize that and to not forget that. If you have friends who do the same, if you have community who do the same. And so that's why I also decided to include this as well. Thank you. I'll go ahead and hand it back to Jeremiah.
Eunice, thank you so much. If we were in person, the crowd would have been going crazy for your work. And this is very different hosting virtually, because I can imagine everyone just going crazy on their computers. There's a lot of people in the chat saying yes, lots of love and this for Nostalgia and Sunday. We do have a question from Erineo Garcia, who says, I'm watching this with my little niece. Any advice for young folk to show compassion, allyship for the LGBTQ community?
I think it's hard, but it's not impossible. And I think it's hard because of media and what is commonly portrayed on television. But I think we need to be brave enough to have conversations. Just the way people start having conversations about babies, saying, oh, look, that's her little boyfriend, and they're like months old. We can also have those conversations about normalizing queer love and normalizing relationships. And I think it's our responsibility to start young, because there's just so much out there that will teach our children hate. And we need to make sure to combat that and to not perpetuate that by being silent.
Definitely. Eunice, thank you so much. Did I hear the elotero in your background?
I think so. I think I blocked it out, but yes, I think it's around that time for him to pass by.
Support our local street vendors.
Yes, I'm in the community, so definitely.
Yes, we do have one more comment from Jane Sweeney. She says, Eunice, you are a hurricane because you are a force of nature. Beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think that's really concurrent with everyone's thoughts right now. Thank you so much. Your poetry is amazing. It is fierce. It is necessary for our times and just in general, because we need more of that and more from individuals like yourself. So thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to hearing more of your work.
Thank you.
Amazing. Again, thank you all for being here today. We are going a little bit later than 3 o'clock. If for whatever reason you do need to go, this video is going to be posted on Corazon del Pueblo's Facebook page after we conclude. So it does look like we are going to be going a bit over. We already are over. But again, if you do need to go, it is going to be posted on Facebook, on their Facebook page. Again, please, if you can, feel free to donate. Not to chime in about the money so much, but again, we have it's the support, and it's our support that keeps programs like this going. Now moving into our next segment, we do have some community poets, myself included. So I'm going to just go ahead and get started into, and then I'll introduce our other community poets. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this or not, but I think I might. I wasn't really finished with it, but this is because it is really short. But I called this, My Grandparents Were American. So my grandma hated huelga. At least that's what my mama said. I can imagine my beloved Henrietta saying, Cesar Chavez, cabrón. It actually makes a lot of sense because as Mexican as she was American. As Filipino as her husband was, he was a proud U.S. Army veteran. As brown as they were, assimilation was a priority, another minority dealing with ethnocentric cultural authority. And did I mention she was in the Teamsters? Yes, indeed. She was a proud union member here in the Santa Maria Valley. So like I said, my grandma hated huelga. And it makes a lot of sense. While I don't agree, that's just something that we talk about in past tense. So that was a little piece on my grandma, Henrietta. This next piece is actually something that I wrote and recorded as a rap, and it was done a few months ago. And I hope y'all enjoy it. I'm trying to be a simple man while most are just simpletons. Been scheming and plotting plans, been driven with diligence. It's getting harder every day to cope with the ignorant. The pain is significant, leaves me feeling indifferent. So the hustle's implicit. Hopes and dreams I could name plenty. Live with twisting conditions, but still better off than many. It's the basics that we lack. All I'm trying to do is live. And if all lives really mattered, why can't folks afford their medicine? Why we intern immigrants, while courts keep making convicts? Holier than thou, yet their politics are hypocrite. The same slew of Democrats and red-blooded kins, killing all our kin with the ways that they govern in. So the prophetic professor's back on the mic. Now that I lay down the lecture, go run that back one more time. Decolonize your mind so you can see the bigger picture. The contrast and the colors are so vivid when they hit you. And I be beside myself, left with the void. If I ain't take the time to say rest in power, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and the countless others lost to violent pigs and white supremacy. And that's a wrap. And that's really what it is to me. And in this society, again, what is going on? Why are we treating people the way we treat them? Because we have the privilege of living in the United States, because we have the privilege of being citizens, because we have the privilege of living in the first world. And it's really all of our, we all have a role, we all have a part. And it is our part that we need to make sure that we're involved. and that we're doing for the community. And so that's my work. I hope you all enjoyed. I appreciate you all. Next up, we have some more community poets. Very excited to present to you Gabriela Santos, Lotta Murphy, Shorty Doo-Wop, and Viviana Hall. Enjoy.
Muy buenas tardes, buenas noches, amigos, amigas que están viendo este programa. 1000 poetas en el mundo por un cambio. Y también gracias al Centro Cultural de Artes y Artes Creativas de aquí de Santa María por permitirnos participar aquí esta tarde. Y mi nombre es Natalia Bautista, yo soy de un pueblo que se llama San Juan Mixtepec, distrito de Juslahuaca, Oaxaca. Y vamos a participar con un poema del señor Mario Benedetti, que el poema se llama Desaparecidos y habla acerca pues de la desaparición forzada de mucha gente, hombres y mujeres jóvenes que han tratado de luchar por un mundo más justo, más equitativo, más igualitario. Y bueno, por sus ideales pues han sido pues ahora sí que desaparecidos. Y también estamos recordando a nuestros estudiantes de Ayotzinapa, que está este 26 de este mes, está cumpliendo 6 años de la desaparición forzada de los estudiantes. Y por eso también queremos participar con este poema. Y pues dice así, vamos a tratar de compartirlo con ustedes esta tarde. Y dice: están en algún sitio, concertados, desconcertados, sordos, buscándonos, bloqueados por los signos y las dudas, contemplando las verjas de las plazas, los timbres de las puertas, las viejas azoteas, ordenando sus sueños, sus olvidos, quizás convalecientes de su muerte privada. Nadie les ha explicado con certeza si ya se fueron o si no, si son pancartas o temblores, sobrevivientes o responsos. Ven pasar árboles y pájaros e ignoran a qué sombra pertenecen. Cuando empezaron a desaparecer hace 3, 5, 7 ceremonias, a desaparecer como sin sangre, como sin rostro, sin motivo. Vieron por las ventanas de su ausencia lo que quedaba atrás, ese andamiaje de abrazos, cielo y humo. Cuando empezaron a desaparecer como el oasis en los espejismos, a desaparecer sin últimas palabras, tenían en sus manos los trocitos de cosas que querían. Están en algún sitio, nube o tumba, están en algún sitio, estoy seguro. Allá en el sur del alma, es posible que hayan extraviado la brújula y hoy vaguen preguntando, ¿dónde carajo queda el buen amor? Porque vienen del odio. Gracias, espero que les haya gustado este poema, pues en memoria de todos nuestros desaparecidos y desaparecidas, pues en muchas partes del mundo y sobre todo en América Latina. Gracias.
The richness of my culture excites me. It's what motivates me, what makes me cherish our traditions. People see me, they think, güera, gringa, ella no puedes hablar español. She can't speak Spanish. I am the daughter of my grandparents' children, a flavorful mixture of Ensenada, Guadalajara, and Matamoros, all born here in the U.S. I am the light-skinned, colored-eyed, curly-haired, Latinx, gender-fluid queer girl of the modern age. Of course, it's a lot to say, and obviously it's non-traditional. However, I am so proud to bear the weight and oppression of my ancestors' flags. We are la raza. Brutality. The official definition: savage physical violence, great cruelty. It is the past of my people. La raza, as my family says. I'm scared, and I'm sure most of us are. But if you think of it, we've come a long way. But it's never enough. Oppression has been in our past, present, and sadly it might be in our future. The orange man hiding behind his suit and tie is responsible for that, and many other things. It pains me to see the news of people like me being treated like animals. Children dying in cages, people losing their teeth due to poor dental care, women forced to have their reproductive organs removed, being held in detention cells and mass cages. Sound familiar? Sooner or later, history repeats itself, for better or worse. Our years of oppression, battling for freedom, for equity, for our want to be seen as human, it's all coming back around. And it's our job to make sure that this time around, it goes the way we want it. Viva la raza.
Hi, my name is Lara Murti, and the first poem that I would like to read to you today has been published in this book, Our Voices, Our Stories, an anthology of writings advancing, celebrating, embracing, and empowering girls and women of color. The poem is called A Poem for Rachel Dolezal and Not for Rachel Dolezal. It could also be a poem for Jessica Krug and not for Jessica Krug. I know my own past, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own folks, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own skin, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own pain, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own shame, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own joy, I can speak to that. Are you listening? I know my own heart, I can speak to that. Are you listening? And when you're done listening, I will speak no more. It's your turn. We are listening. The next set of 3 poems I wrote in a poetry journal during my trip to India almost 2 years ago. Mirrors. Every time I encounter a mirror, I stare a little longer than the time before, as each time a slightly different woman stares back at me. A woman with more black tresses than gray, a woman whose eyes shine brighter, having seen more hope than words they can read, a woman who appreciates that her curves and her stature were made for clothes that flow and drape with ancient elegance, a woman whose smile beams more contentment and satisfaction than she had ever imagined possible, a woman whose body holds the love of more people and places than any one mirror can reflect to the world. Oh, Mother India, oh, Mother India, how you've worn me down with your dust and your spices, your mosquitoes, crowds, and sound. I came here to be stronger, but it's weakness I have found. Oh, Mother India, how you leave me spent with my family's need to know from whence I came and where I went. I came here to learn more, but am seen as ignorant. Oh, Mother India, you have such power over me. Tonight I leave your shores, but you will not let me be. Someday I will return when you call across the sea. Come, my child, come. There's so much more of me to see. Come, my child, come. There's so much more of you to free. Women in India, they protest because their voices are louder together in the world than at home. Louder than the INC, the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, and the BJP, louder than husbands and fathers and in-laws and sons and priests. They protest as if their lives depend on it, because they do, because de jure is not de facto, and sexism transcends all creeds. while every woman bleeds. And a school on every corner means nothing in the hands of men who desire smart women, earning women, talented women, but never louder women, who raise their voices in protest with all but nothing to lose. The last poem I wrote in March of this year, 2020, when sheltering in place due to COVID-19 went into effect. Returning to my poetry journal, I pick up this pen and this journal again because words are what I have. Words will save me or spell my certain doom. Regardless, uncertainty will loom. So best to weave a net of words to catch my fall from normal and to capture the criminal like the dragnets of my TV-laden youth. Words stretch to hold what they contain, whatever the weight I give them, however long they lie in wait. Words will save us. Words are all we have. Thank you.
Every night I lay to sleep, I pray to the Lord, my soul you keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray to the Lord, my soul you take.
Is this Davy?
Shot flying, it ain't Nathan to a giant, huh? I damn near shed a tear every time I'm writing some. Can't bite my tongue, cause if I do, things will be sugar-coated. It sound like Jesus, sound like Malcolm, sound like Tookie wrote it. You should've quoted me before it was too late, little homie. Is it a lack of vision or a form of hate, little homie? I guess we'll never know, never show, never grow about our ways because they never give us credit for all of the greatness we done put out in the universe. You would be wildin' too if you was told that you was cursed. We rule the earth, I'm talking them and me, it's me and them. Look at my little cousins like I see a lot of me and them. I'm leading them to the promised land before I die. Sometimes I check my post to make sure that I'm still alive. I'm still gonna rise above the hate like I told you I would. I can't relate, I wouldn't even stoop that low if I could. Feed the birds, ironic cause we used to shoot the birds. I keep it true with y'all, knowing that the truth will hurt. We use these words to turn our trauma into trophies, dog. With all this hope, I throw some hope right to the hopeless God. And pray you let me see another day on your green earth. Relationship with God without even going to church. I can't die now, I still got a whole lot to do. You gon' go through some pain in this life, but all you got to do is turn your pain, turn your pain, turn your pain to power. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Turn your pain to power. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, turn your pain to power. Whoa, whoa. Turn that pain to power. Turn your pain to power.
Every night I lay to sleep, I pray to the Lord, my soul you keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray to the Lord, my soul you take.
I ain't God, and I ain't Jesus. I ain't no teacher, and I damn sure ain't no preacher. I ain't employed, my resume don't look too decent. It's money season, I ain't got much left on my visa. I ain't no follower, but I am a leader. I am the one that told you, give me one reason. I am the one that's yelling, power to the people. Supposed to be dead or a number, but I'm still breathing. They can't believe it. The world is mine. I ain't rich, but I'm rich up in my mind. I ain't this and I ain't that. The shit I'm trying. Finally conscious, I've been sleeping all this time. Maybe fucked up, physically or mentally, but ain't no way that stopped me. ADHD, they cursed us with it. They tried to poison me at 5, they fed me with it. Pharmacologically the crack, it's all equivalent. Don't let the system beat you, beat the system. What don't kill you make you stronger, I hope you're listening. Said what don't kill you make you stronger, in case you missed it. As far as I know, I am Chicano. I'm treating life like I ain't about to see tomorrow. Set up to fail, but success my only option. If I can make it, you can make it. Search for knowledge. The prison's packed with browns and blacks, let's pack the college. Surrounded by negativity, trying to stay positive. They told my sister she couldn't, but she accomplished it. Graduated from 2 colleges, no scholarship. Never thought a brown girl could turn professor. Class in session, respected Dr. Desmond. And I am a survivor. I'm a struggler and a striver. I am the fighter. In the eyes, in the belly of the beast. I am the son of a king and a queen. I am more than a statistic. I am young, brown, and ambitious. Don't let nobody tell you that you ain't nobody. I ain't him and I ain't them, but I am somebody. I am.
Laugh in the time of coronavirus. Nature always finds a way to face us with our ultimate truth. Yesterday was the avian flu, Ebola, the Black Death. Today is COVID-19. The question is, what have we learned? Paradoxically, social distance incites to come closer in more meaningful ways besides discovering vaccines. Realizing we are all more alike than different urges worldwide mutual cooperation. From person to person, country to country, region to region, eliminating poverty, hunger, homelessness, all abuses of power over human beings and nature, to preserve life. Metropolitan. This poem was born in New York City. I think of the hands of men, the trust of children, the embrace of lovers, the expression in faces, displaying the sorrow and the joy, the passing of time beholds. I think of life itself, and of the human being in the universal context where we all meet. Walking the streets, I see in this infinite ocean of vulnerable flesh, people hungry, cold, homeless, unloved. Wherever I direct my eyes, I see in this metropolis of contrast, people exposed to become someone else. A beggar lies on the walkway, and I almost stop going on the same side, as it happened the other day when noticing those guys in the subway alleys. The street is at this time of day exceptionally noisy. Still you can hear, among the sounds of traffic, ambulances, fire trucks, and the anonymous voices of the anonymous ones, the beat of a heart and a scream groaning, from one street to the other, from one to another, all over town. The time is now. In the powerful design that gives us life, days and nights, earth, the stars, the eternal architect brings itself completely. Immersed in the subtle wave of time, we exist daily in a conflictive world. War, hate, darkness. There will be no tomorrow. The time is now to be humane. That man. At daybreak, that man would recreate light by the ocean. He paused there, netting the fish of the sea of truth. Then he would walk among the people. From a fading blue, the sun descends in the horizon. Meanwhile, the early star lights the candelabra of light. I see the gifted and free, others chained by greed. Those are the ones that deaden in all the human impulse to soar. Ambitiously, they look out to the sky to clutch in fear the captive earth in their sterile grasp. As he walked, at times resigned to sadness, in deciphering the human enigma, he became more hopeful. He trusted the time would come for light to reflect in persons, as it always does in mirrors. Lluvia, llueve. El agua derramada se filtra en los campos. Apresuradas, las aves abandonan el vuelo. Los surcos se ensanchan, las arboledas crecen. Llueve. El río aumenta su caudal. El césped reverdece. Sonríe un árbol silenciosamente. Llueve. Germina en las entrañas de la tierra la simiente fértil de la siembra. Tras la lluvia, el deseo vago de un fruto nuevo.
Thank you to our community poets.
A nap at Morro Rock. The rain came slowly at first, splat splat on my windshield, then on the roof of my car. I put the seat back, covered my eyes with my cap, and listened to the rain our first in months. Years ago, I would have gone out, spread my arms wide, thrown my head back, and savored every drop until I was wet as my border collie romping in the surf. Now I lifted my cap and watched the rain slip sliding down the windshield and listened to the endless barrage of teardrop marbles pouring from the sky. I saw beyond the millions of tiny splashes returning to the sea, and there I understood there'd be no Olympic Games for me, no youthful body that could outrun the wind, no hurdles, no spiked shoes, no finish line, just me in the rain and more rock. And there I'll saddle up and chase the sky forever. Me and a Mustang in the wind will hurdle all the icebergs falling toward the sun and ride a laser through the sea of stars. There'll be no race we can't run till the sun fades to an ember, and I'll come back this way again.
Awesome. I hope you all enjoyed our community poets. That is going to conclude our program for today. I do want to leave you with a brief quote from Audre Lorde. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. So again, just thinking about change. What do you vision as change? What do you want to change? How can you yourself make change? And each and every one of us has our part. We are all involved. So on that note, thank you to everyone who came and joined us today. Special thanks to our featured poets, Jaime and Eunice, our panelists, Catherine, Zulema, Leo, and Gloria. And I forgot to mention earlier, Mario, for moderating our panel. Thank you. Our community poets, Gabriela, Lata, Shorty Duwop, Viviana, and a special dedication to Ivan. A big thank you for our interpreters, Elijah and Erica. We appreciate you very much bringing access to our event. And thank you to Alex and everyone else at Corazon del Pueblo for making this event happen. If you do want to get involved, please follow, or if not, just want to stay up to date, please follow Cultural and Creative Arts Center of Santa Maria Valley on Facebook. If you're not already, you guys can find the page from this live stream. And again, please follow us on Facebook. And again, if you'd like to support having more programs like this or support the organization in general, you can find the link in the comments, and it is tinyurl.com/donate-CDP. On that note, thank you everyone for being here with us today. Again, we appreciate you. Be safe and have a great weekend.